We're going to do today how Siman Kuf Chaf Halacha test. Okay, first we do halacha. We're really not going to talk about the din, but I'll explain to you what it says anyhow. Mishkin Avik Chavim Clearly Yisrael. If a guy gave a mashkin to someone who's Jewish, so it's a guy's kli, and what we're going to talk about is that the underlying assumption here is that a kli that belongs to a guy you're not going to do tefillah for, but he gave it to the yid now. So im nir b'das Avik Chavim shavoytzel shaka b'yadei. If the guy plans on leaving it by you, you're going to keep this mashkin. Telling tefillah, you need to have tefillah, because we compare things to klei midyan, and as long as it's going to be by you, you're going to keep it, and even though it's not technically yours yet, but it will eventually become yours, it's already shakur b'yadei.
You have to pay. What's that supposed to mean?
Right. The plan is he's not going to pay, and he's going to let you keep the mashkin. It's not 100. It's not but basically that's where it's heading. Then you need to tell because it's already enough yours that you mechuyt to.
Past performance is indication of future.
Let's say the imlav. What happens if you don't know? What happens if you don't know? Then you have to blend the blood bracha, and tell that bracha, or yikne kli achav yitblend imoy, or by another kli and tell that kli together with this one. Okay, so I mentioned once before, and this is the only place where the Machaber says that there's such a thing as a tefillah b'li bracha. Okay, the Ramah says it a bunch of times, and the Achronim say the other place can say it all over the place. There's only case that the Machaber says tefillah without bracha. It means it's a suffix. Why is it a suffix? Because it's a suffix in the Gemara. Okay, the Gemara says a case that a guy gives someone a mashkin, and the person titled it. He titled it before he used it. And the Gemara says they were mesupik if the reason why he titled it is because he holds mashkanta kizvina. When you get a mashkin, it's as if you bought it and it's mechuyev tefillah no matter what. Or it happened to be that the guy planned to leave it by him. So since it was we weren't sure why the person titled it, so therefore we titled it misafik. Okay, we're not sure. It could be that it's automatically chayav tefillah even if you're not supposed to keep it. And therefore we titled it misafik tefillah blood broth.
It's not his own shot. It's constantly changing.
The Gemara says it leaves off as a suffix.
Right.
So if it's a suffix, so since it's a suffix, we tell that bracha.
It wasn't the Shulchan.
No, but the only time the Machaber says that. In all the other cases, the Machaber tells you what he thinks the din is. The Ramah is, in more cases, I'm not sure what the din is, or we should be not
Those cases usually are Ramah's own shot.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Now, and the Ramah therefore says, the Ramah sticks in the other half, which is what happens if in the end, it ends up that he does end up keeping it? So now you originally titled it in suffix. So then Yachs get on the boy bracha, then title it again boy bracha, because now again maybe the first tefillah was nothing, and therefore now it becomes a chayv and tefillah, and therefore you have to be titled now boy bracha when you decide that you're going to keep it. Okay. So this first we're going to talk about a tefillas Keilim issue, and then we're going to branch out of tefillas Keilim. Okay. So the tefillas Keilim issue is again, as I said, this assumption is all here is that if a guy has a kli and I use it, I'm not mukhlid to title it. Okay. So most people have that comes up to most people is. If you go to a hotel and you want to drink out of a glass in the hotel, so you're not ordering the kashrus of it because it's cold, but you're using a guy's kli, it's a glass cup, and it should need tefillah, but since it belongs to the guy, you're not mechuyv to table, even though the yid is using it, the yid's not mechuyv to table. That's how most people confuse. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about a situation that goes on in a different city under a reputable hashgacha, not ours, who does the following. When business people, a yid has to meet someone who's not Jewish at a business meeting. So, what does he do? If they for whatever reason are stuck at a not kosher restaurant, so what does he do? He doesn't eat. He has an apple. He just drinks a cup of water. He basically he can't eat. It's a fake restaurant. Okay, so someone came up with the following idea. You put in your adjective. Idea. Okay, idea, and that is like this. He goes to the restaurant. He's a caterer. He goes to the restaurant. He said, restaurant, when you order dishes, plates and forks, every so often you order new stuff. When you get a new order, give me a bunch of them. Okay, so let's say they order 100 new plates. Give me 5 of those plates before you ever use them. And your silverware, give me a bunch of them before you ever use them. Okay, I mean they're going to be kosher. He takes them to his catering facility, and onto those plates he puts food, already cooked food. He makes a whole plate full of a meal, and he puts it onto the plate, wraps it up and seals it, and sticks it in the freezer. And now, when a yid comes to that restaurant, when a yid shows up at the restaurant he wants to eat, he tells them before he's coming, they take the plate with this frozen meal on it, that's on the exact same china and silverware that the restaurant uses. They stick it in the microwave, and when they're about to serve him, when it's time, everyone orders, they say, I want this, and I want that, I want pork chops, and I want this. Everyone orders their thing, and he says he wants whatever it is. They know who he is. When he walks in, it's already, it's all prearranged. At a certain point, they call it, excuse me, sir, we need you in the kitchen. We need you for a second. They pull him out, and they discreetly, he watches them unseal it, and then they bring his plate to the table. So Johnny eats pork chops and he eats a cheeseburger, and I eat a steak, but my steak came from a kosher restaurant. Okay, now, but I'm eating.
So much brilliant.
So far it's horrific. So we're also the same thing. They get matched silverware, and then
They bring it out with
it's sealed, and when they bring it, he watches them. They do it.
His plate isn't set. His place.
Or they said it before. How they sneak in the
Oh, get the meal. How do they keep it?
No, and then it becomes just part of their dishes. They keep it.
So it's a one-time deal.
Right. Basically like a disposable. But so what we're not going to talk about.
Still brilliant.
What we're not going to talk about is the horrific shiloh over here, which is the horrible Marasayan. Okay? The guy is eating, I'm eating in a treif restaurant, a piece of meat on their dishes. I'm not eating on a paper napkin, airline meal. I'm eating on real dishes. Imagine everybody else, and mine is steak, and his is pork chops, and mine is kosher, and his is not.
So put a sign there, kosher.
That's the whole point, is to not have this on. That's like the whole chop here. So that's the Maris Aaron Shiloh is not what we're going to talk about. Okay? You need to ask your private rabbi. Okay, but that's a horrible Shiloh. We do not. Okay, we don't do that. Okay, but so another reputable hashgacha does. Okay, but the question is about the Tevillas kale.
Well, why am I eating a salad? Is that?
Yes, I've aligned them. So, yes, okay. So the
Not what I
Okay. So if you're curious, Rabbi Lubin once wrote an article about a guy who says, I'm going to go to a treif restaurant and eat there. It's a very interesting article about that. There's all the things that can go wrong. Okay, anyway, fine. So the first thing is this: if the deal, the simplest thing is like this: if the deal with the restaurant is that the restaurant paid for the dishes, because it's going to be their dishes, they're going to keep the dishes in the end. If they paid for the dishes and they just hand it to the caterer and say, caterer, put on these meals, we have a contract with you, you put on the meals, and as we need them, we'll order them from you, these meals that are going to be wrapped and sealed, then of course it doesn't need to be typed, because if it goes clean, nothing to be typed. What happens if, the other way around, if the restaurant says to the caterer, if you want these dishes, we're going to charge you for the dishes. Okay, we're going to charge you $5 a dish, and either you get back the money back later. Well, that's part of the deal. That you have. Listen, we're not just giving you 20 dishes for nothing. You have to pay for your dishes. Okay, so it seemed to me like this: the silverware. If the yid paid for the silverware, then it seemed to me that the first time you need to have the silverware is when you're going to use them. Okay, by the time that the yid is using them, even though it once belonged to you, by the time the yid is using them, it's not a Jew's silverware anymore. Okay, at that point, it's already gone. It became the place is silverware. So they put it down in the restaurant.
For the silverware,
the caterer bought the silverware. He didn't have to tell them. He's not eating with them. He just wrapped them up. He took the silverware, wrapped them in the thing, and sealed them.
Once it's open,
now he hands it to the customer. The customer sitting at the restaurant. As soon as I open them up, at this point, they belong to the restaurant. Because we know what's going to happen when the meal's over. They're going to clear them away with everything else. They're going to the restaurant. It was sold to the yid, to the caterer, and now at this. Before anybody uses it, it's gone. It's not going to be. It's the guy's clean ready. Okay? And even for the plates, where after the person put the food onto the plate, so there it seemed to me that was that there. It's like our Illinois nut trays. It's a place
for the guy. The Mashiach, the need opening up makes the Mashiach.
The chatzar, everything. I mean, it's we'll call it chatzar. Okay, it's theirs. And the truth is, it's probably theirs already even by the time it gets delivered to them. Right? When they deliver meals with the wrapped up silverware, they're delivering and they're saying, here it is, you're ready to go, Okay, but, and so, first of all, it would seem that this is like a clay spiral kind of example. The caterer who's putting the food onto the plate, for him, he's doing it's just a delivery plate on. And also for the guy who's eating them anyhow, he could just empty it. Okay. So that was, probably is, I don't know the financial arrangements. I don't know. So if the restaurant owner is the simpler case, okay, it seems to me that even if the caterer reported, they shouldn't be. Okay, so now to our bigger topic. Okay, well hopefully we have time like this. The Taz is a catch on this mechaber. Okay, the mechaber said the second case of the mechaber was if you don't know if the guy plans on leaving it by you, then misaflik you have to type it. Okay, so the Taz says wait a second. He says why are you using the guy's kli? The guy is not sure if he's going to leave it by you. So the Taz says, isn't that Genaivas Da'as from the guy? He gave you a kli that you should hold on to it. He gave you a kli as a mashkin. He's not planning on leaving it by you. So if you're using his kli, you're you're being dishonest with him. He gave you kli to hold as a mashkin. He gave
Who's
you
allowed to use it? Who's the deal you're allowed to use it?
So you're saying maybe the deal was that you're allowed to use it. Okay, the Shach talks like that.
You can't. It's Sheila Midas.
What?
Sheila Shula Midas. No guy's mutter.
Okay, so maybe that's an interesting way of looking at it.
Genaivas Da'as? It's Genaivas.
You're right. It's a good question. I'm not sure why I would say it's Genaivas Da'as. So he's looking at it as I'm not taking anything from him. Maybe like David called the Sheila. I'm not taking anything from him. He gets back the same plate that he gave me or whatever the thing that he gave me, but I'm tricking him in that I'm using it. Maybe he says maybe it's Genaivas Da'as because he could have, if he would have known, he would have taken it from my price. I'm not sure why he looks at it as Genaivas Da'as. Probably because he wants us to be careful about Genaivas Da'as. So try to use it. So the Taz says, and we know the Gemara says the Genaivas Da'as is also even for Goy. So the Taz says that it's only usher to do the Genaivas Da'as, at least in this case, if you did something to mislead the guy. Okay, you did something, you told him something, you acted in a certain way to mislead the guy, but you didn't, but over here, you didn't do anything. The guy gave you the thing as a mashkin, and then you sort of chose to use it, he doesn't see that as Genaivas Da'as. Okay? So, I'm gonna mention a few cases, and we're actually not going to talk about the cases, but there's some cases of Genaivas Da'as that have to do with what we do, with Kashrus work that we do, which is a lot of cases. I guess it depends who you are, whether you think there's a few cases or a lot of cases. And one is, people have this impression, there are people out in the world who have this impression that kosher food is better because somebody's watching to make sure that it's more hygienic and clean. So all kinds of ideas that they have about why kosher food is better. So if a person were to, how much am I allowed to say or not say when that comes up? Someone says to me, I want to become kosher because I know that my food will then be under a higher authority and there will be better food because of that. Okay, which is ridiculous.
He believes that.
If he says, oh, he says, my customers will think that. Okay, so
big difference.
Yeah, it is a big difference. Okay, or what happens if I give hashgacha? He comes to you and says, I want hashgacha for my name the thing that doesn't need hashgacha. Okay, water, detergent, whatever it is, and I say, and either I don't say anything, or I say something to encourage him that it's a great idea that he should become kosher. So we run into situations of potential. And then there's regular Genaivas Da'as. Okay, I'm going to tell you just an unusual situation that someone told me about. They said this is not Kashrus related. A person was taking an online course, and in online courses, there's all different ways that they give tests. You think about it, if it's an online course, that means you're not sitting in front of teachers. So how do they make sure people don't cheat? There's all different ways that they do it. Okay? In this class, the tests were on the honor system. Okay, there was no control to make sure you didn't cheat. Other people do, but in this case, there was no control to make sure you didn't cheat. So the person said they don't want to cheat. But then they found out that this person was honest. They didn't want to cheat. But then the teacher basically told them that so many people cheat that I make the test extra hard to compensate for all the people who are cheating. Okay, I know that everyone's cheating, and then I make the test extra hard. So this person said, well, now I'm being punished for being honest. I mean, I want to be honest. I want to do like this and not cheat. But the test is really not made for that. The test is really made for people who aren't cheating. But you don't think it's a shame?
It's a shame.
Okay. Okay. So
you're an honor system.
There was that
Kashrus in place. They're telling you to cheat. It's mostly to cheat.
No, they're telling you it's an honor system. They're not 8-year-olds. This is a college class of people.
Yeah, they don't put any precautions in place.
Okay. So
why did they give that case in Kashrus?
Yeah.
Once got a hashgacha from somebody and said the cleanser certification attached. That's it. He was working for a different agency. And that agency gave a hash on that cleanser.
Really? So he told them they have to use the kosher cleanser.
That's right.
Okay. Good. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a few things about Genaivas Da'as. But it would be really incongruous if we'd be talking about Genaivas Da'as and I would mislead you into thinking that I know everything about Genaivas Da'as. So I'm just going to tell you a few things that.
By the way, but cheating at test not just Genaivas Da'as, could be Genaivas Mam.
Yes, correct. The Moshe talks about it. Yes, there's a well-known truth for Moshe about that cheating on tests may be worse than just Genaivas Da'as. Yes, but we're not talking about that. That's not really our thing. So I'm not going to really tell you all about Genaivas Da'as, but just a few things that caught my interest that seemed relevant. Okay, so the first is that there's different. The Rishonim and later points can give two different explanations for Genaivas Da'as, for why it's also to do Genaivas Da'as. Okay. Some of them look at the fact that I'm getting something from the person that I don't deserve. Okay, Rashi says, Nimtza machzik lo tova chinam. The fact that he thinks I did him a favor and now he owes me something makes him, I took something from the person. Or he thinks more highly of me. There's something that I got from him so it focuses more on how it affects the other person. I'm doing something, I'm, so to speak, stealing from that other person. It's called Genaivas Da'as. And others make it not from the sense of what I'm doing to the other person, but from the bad midas that I have for myself. Okay, the Rambam says in Hilchos Days, he says, a person has to speak in an honest way, and a person who's doing Genaivas Da'as, it has nothing to do with how you reflect back onto me. It's that it's dishonest of me. I'm teaching myself bad midas in myself to talk in a certain way. The Rebbeinu Yonah says it's part of the kat shakronim. Okay, it's a liar. And lying has nothing to do with you. If I sit in my bathroom and tell lies, I guess that's also lying. You know what I mean? It's not because of you. It's because of the bad needs of myself. Okay, and seemingly it could be both. Okay, I'm not sure why people. It doesn't have to be one or the other. There's different angles to it. Okay, and the Kenzine, if you'll think about it, the Taz may be dependent on these two things. And in fact, lots of Torah that people say about when they talk about Genaivas Da'as makes it, I think, depend on these two shittas. Okay, you'll see. So now, I'm going to tell you two stories from Rabbi Zilberstein, who's you'll hear it's classic. Okay, about it. Okay, and the first one is like this. Okay, one of the biggest coolers that there is about Genaivas Da'as is iud atei nafshi. Okay, if the person fools himself, I didn't trick him. He convinced himself that something was true and it wasn't really the truth. Then that's not considered Genaivas Da'as. It comes from a story of the Gemara. The Gemara says there were these two people who were walking on the road, and they banged into somebody else. And the other person said to them, "Oh my gosh, it's so nice that you guys came out to greet me." And one of them says, "We didn't come out to greet you. We were heading to the pizza shop. We were heading someplace else. We were going someplace." And after that, the other guy kicks him and says to him, "Why did you say that for?" So he says, I said it because I didn't want to think that we did him this big favor. He says, you didn't have to tell him. He tricked himself. He think we came out to greet him. We happened to be walking down the road. There's a problem that he thought like that, and therefore that's not Genaivas Da'as. And that's the maskana. That it's not Genaivas Da'as if the person tricks himself. Okay? So
that's for something positive. It won't be the opposite for something negative.
What do you mean something negative? What do you mean?
Just nasty.
Right. Just switch it around. Here it came out a benefit that he did.
Okay.
Right? So I don't know, whatever scenario will be.
That I made the person feel bad?
Huh? No, the person
Fortunate himself.
So why would I want him to think that I did something bad to him? Why wouldn't I want to correct him? Here you want him to feel good. Okay? So
you do something bad to him.
Right.
Not that he thought I did something good, I was doing nothing, I was neutral. Let's say it's coming out that I'm doing something bad to him.
So why wouldn't I correct him? Then I would want to correct him.
He's suffering something, but his own fault. It was own fault.
Right. So you're not mechuyev. You may not be mechuyev to tell him, but then you would want. But in that case, you would want to tell him. Over here, you want to not tell him because you want him to feel good about you.
It's a book not to tell him. Say they're not shaded. You know he's suffering. So you get something.
You want to do something bad and you didn't have the dread to do bad.
Right. So like this. So when the Mechaber says it, when the Mechaber talks about it, he says, okay, he could have realized that you weren't doing it for him, then you don't have to.
Should have realized.
He did say he should have. He says, that means he could have. Okay? I don't know if he should have. Okay, I'm not sure if that's right. We'll get to that in a second. Okay, so Rabbi Zilberstein's story is like this. There was a Mashalach, and he knocked on the door. He says the story is not true. What can I tell you? He said he knocked on the door of someone's house, and he's talking to the person, and the person says to him, he says, we have to talk with whatever he has to do. He says, by the way, he's learning this and this thing, and he's bothered by something. There's something that's bothering him. He can't understand a certain din or a certain Gemara or whatever it is. So they talk about it, and the Mashalach can't come up with an answer. He can't answer the guy's question. So he gives him a check, and he walks out the door. Okay, so that night, when he's back at the Kashrus apartment, he says to the other Mashalach, he says, he tells what happened. I went to click by this guy, and he told me this is what happened. So the other Mashalach says, I'm going to that guy tomorrow. So he sits down, and he spends his night, going over the sugya, and he has an answer to the guy's question. So he knocks on the door. Now he comes tomorrow, knocks on the guy's door, and the guy says, okay, what are you here for? And he tells him, he says, and by the way, there's this thing that's bothering me. And he says, yeah, look at this. He tells me it's like this. He goes, oh my God, look at this guy. Wow, Mamash, this guy, Mamash a goy. And instead of giving me a check for this much, he gives him a nice big check. What a goy who came to visit me. Mamash, you never know who's going to be the apartment. Mamash is such a thing. And he gives this guy. And the guy wants to know what's Genaivas Da'as, that he tricked the guy. The guy thinks he's this big guy. He's not guy. He heard about it last night while they were sitting, eating Great Chicago. He heard about it, Okay, so he says like this. So this exhibit first says like this. He says, I have a question. He says, the Gemara says if the guy tricks himself, then it's okay. So he says, he asks a question. The Yerushalmi says, you may know this. It's at the end of Shvius. It happens to be. He says like this. If a person is in a city, and they want to honor him as if he knows a lot, he knows two Masechtas, and really he only knows one Masechta. He's not as great as they think he is. He's mechuyev to tell them. He says, so why over there? Why does the Gemara say that you're not mechuyev to tell a person? Why do we say in the Yerushalmi this? Why do we say in the Yerushalmi Kashrus? So I'm not mechuyev that you think that I'm so smart. You think I know two Masechtas. So why don't I say why don't I just be quiet and not tell you that I really don't know one Masechta? Why do I have to tell you that I know two Masechtas? Okay, so the first answer he brings is from Marit, and the Marit says that when they say to you, Tafik, you're so smart, you know two Masechtas, my silence at that point is as if I acknowledge what they said. When they say you know two Masechtas, then the fact that I didn't say anything is as if I'm agreeing to them that I know, in fact I know two Masechtas, as if I told it to them, it's like I tricked them into it. Okay, now, I don't understand what the Marit. The Marit does say that. I looked at it. The Marit does say that. I don't understand it really because in the case of the Gemara, that's what happened also. The Gemara makes the point that the person said to them, it's so nice that you came out to meet me. Okay? It wasn't just that they realized that he felt like that. He said to them, isn't it nice that you came out to greet me? So if being quiet is as if saying it yourself, why isn't that in the Gemara also? That's what happened in the story in the Gemara. So the guy said, and to which he responded, no, it's not true. I didn't come out for it. He didn't think of saying it by himself. He said it so I'm not sure. But that's what Marit says. So let's just stay with Marit. So according to the way the Marit says it, then see when the rich person, when the guy said in the answer, he probably said back to him, man, that was really good. I didn't realize how big of a Talmid Chacham you are. He probably said something. If the guy would have said something, then according to the guy would be mechuyev to say it. Okay, and you only allowed to not say it if it's just the guy you realize that he has that good feeling. But if you would say it, you wouldn't be allowed to. Okay, so then the story's not over. So the Rebbitzak Zilberstein asked Reb Chaim Kanievsky what he thinks about the story. Okay, and Reb Chaim Kanievsky he says, no problem. 100%. Safka d'shmaya for this guy that he got to collect more. He says, really? He says, I'll tell you. He says, two stories happened with Rebbitzak Elchanan, exactly like that, or something like that. And that's like this. Rebbitzak Elchanan, if I got the story correctly, 2 times is going to cities for them to consider that he should be the Rav of the city. Okay? And 2 times stories happened that Mamish, it just worked out that the things that they were going to talk to him about were things that he happened to have just seen. Okay, one story was in the hotel the night before he got to the city. He asked the hotel owner, "Do you have any svarim?" And the hotel owner had no svarim. He says, "The only thing I have is a Derech Chaim Siddur." He says, "Okay, I'll take what I can get." So he takes from the seats. He takes the Derech Chaim Siddur. He opens it up, and by Kriyas HaTorah, that's Hilchos Kriyas HaTorah. So he was looking through the things that he says there about Hilchos Kriyas HaTorah. And the next day, it must have been, a weekday, or maybe it was Shabbos, and he looks at, and a Shabbos came up that Hilchos Kriyas HaTorah right in the middle of davening, and he says to them, I think they did it like this. And they were arguing back and forth, and in the end someone said, no, let's go look at Derech Chaim Siddur. And they open up, look at that, it says exactly that. My gosh, look at this guy who knows Mamish. He said exactly, he was Muhammad exactly what Derech Chaim said. Okay, that was one story. And the other story was, and I'm going to tell you, I agree. And the other story was Rebbitzak Elchanan, this story probably have a second. He realized that if you travel on the way, you may not have svarim. So he decided that he would learn over a sugya before he left, and that he have something to think about as he's traveling. Okay? So the Tevillas that he had learned about, which Chaim Kanievsky tells you which Tevillas it was, he says, the Tevillas that he had learned about, he came to the city, they were having a shiloh about or whatever, and he brought them a riot from this Tevillas. Okay, so again, and they were so impressed that here, he was like, pull out of Tevillas from who knows where to answer the Kayash about this thing, they were very impressed. Okay? So he said, Chaim said, it's your hashkacha that worked out like that. You knew the answer to the guy's question, so the guy is very impressed by you, and So, of course, the question on that is, I don't know if that's what you mean, what?
Here the guy knew.
Right here, that the guy, when it doesn't seem the same, Rabbi Yitzchak Hanan, Taka was hashgacha, that he happened to know, he was ready for that piece of information. But
that's what I'm coming to. It's for sure the guy's going to sit and learn the whole night. With that. Check what he's going to learn.
Okay.
The guy will learn this. You know what I mean?
Okay.
If the guy was going to sit there and do whatever, then you look at the person.
Okay, so
But it's a portion of tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
What would have been if the guy asked him another question? Oh, I see you're such a Talmud Chacham.
then they would have balanced out. Okay, so
The
the
portion of Rameh, they tried to not quote Ram Gamliel.
Yeah.
It was Rameh and Ram Nosson, right? And put somebody sat, they were going to ask him a question in the studio, so Zokin came and learned from the studio in front of Ram Gamliel,
yeah,
right? The next morning, Rameh and Ram Nosson asked his kasha.
that you're allowed to do it. You're saying,
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So maybe that's a riot. So I thought Pshat, and what Keilim was trying to say was like this: was the Mechaber said, I read to the Mechaber before. It says, okay, which is to say like this: if it's something, you should realize that it might be a coincidence. I'm walking on the road and two people come to meet me. It could be they're coming to meet me, and I should have realized it could be it's a coincidence that they're coming to meet me. I should have realized that I shouldn't draw a conclusion from what I see. So in the case of Rabbi Yitzchak Hanan, the fact that he knew the answer to their question, they extrapolated from that, oh, if you know this din about Hilchos Kriyas Torah, you must know everything. Okay? They extrapolated from one, and they should have realized maybe it's just a coincidence and he knows that. In which case, the Meshulach has the same point, which is, the Meshulach, I'm not talking from the underhandedness of the Meshulach, I'm talking about it from the side of the person. He saw that the Meshulach knew one piece of information. It's his extrapolation to say, if you know that, then you know something else also. Just because you know one thing doesn't mean you know two things. Okay, so it's just an extrapolation. Okay, so, and Hankinsky's point is, it doesn't make a difference whether you prepared or you didn't prepare. The point is, when you told the person the answer, he didn't say you were going because it's a great answer. He says, you know this, you must know so many things. Okay, that's your extrapolation, like in the case of Yitzchak Hanan. Okay, now with that, it could be we could answer, if that's what he meant, we could answer the question from Yerushalmi also, because in all the situations I told you here, the guys who met on the road, and the Meshulach, and the Rabbi Yitzchak Hanan, in all those cases, we know the whole story. We saw the whole story. You were walking the road, two other people came to meet you, and you thought that this is what was happening. Your Rabbi Yitzchak Hanan learned the din today, and tomorrow they asked him to knew the answer to the question. When the person's in a city, and they honored the person for knowing two Masechtas, maybe the pshat is, why do they think that he knows two Masechtas? Why did they decide that this guy knows two Masechtas? So it's reflective on the fact that not that he's going to das today, he was going to das yesterday. The fact that these guys think that he knows two Masechtas, they didn't just dream that up. In our case, we know why they think. If you knew the answer to one question in Hilchos Kriyas Torah, you must know a lot of things. We know the whole story. So he said, look, you fooled yourself. I didn't make you think like that. I just told you the answer to one question. But in the case of the Yerushalmi, the reason why they're honoring him like he knows two Masechtas is because they must think that he knows something. They say, there's a reason why. So it's not that I'm correcting today. The fact that they said, you know two Masechtas, I wouldn't have to correct that. It's because if they're telling me I know two Masechtas today, probably yesterday, I misled them in some other way. So I'm correcting yesterday's Genaivas Da'as, not today's Genaivas Da'as. And all the other stories I told you, we knew the whole story from beginning to end. We don't have to correct it. Okay, there's another answer, anyhow, from the show. Before we get to the next story, I have one more story for you. There's a Sma that says that if it's the common practice, the Sma is talking about if you have meat, and you soak it in water to make it look fresher, that's Genaivas Da'as. That's a din. It's Genaivas Da'as. It's from I think it's from a Gemara. The Mechaber brings that. And the Sma says, but if everybody in town does that, then it's not Genaivas Da'as. Okay? So one person who I talked about this question said that person has something to do with fundraising. And they said, everybody knows that fundraisers, that's what they do. They think that they said, oh, I'm going to collect by you. Well, what's important to you? What do you care about? And they prepare themselves to get ready. So if that's the minhag, then every person who's being collected from needs to be cognizant that if they happen to know the answer to your question, there's probably a reason. Okay? If they all of a sudden care about, I don't know what, Arla on some crazy shiloh, it's not because they prepared before. Okay? So Alpha Smile, maybe that's the reason. Okay. Our next story is, there's a person who went to the Sefer, and he found out that the parshas in his tefillin were puzzled. And he couldn't afford new parshas. Okay? He couldn't afford new parshas. So what he would do is every day, when davening was over, he would borrow somebody else's tefillin, because he couldn't afford to buy new parshas. but the person felt silly sitting the whole davening, he wasn't wearing tefillin. So he had a brilliant idea. He says, I have batim, I just don't have parashas. So during davening, I'll wear my batim the way they are. They're puzzle. And then when davening's over, I'll borrow somebody else's tefillin. I'll be young to the mitzvah, but this I won't feel silly in the middle of davening. So the person wanted to know if that would be Genaivas Da'as, because he's making everybody think that he's wearing tefillin. Okay, he's sitting the whole davening wearing this on his head and on his hands. He looks like he's wearing tefillin, but he's really not. He really is wearing just empty boxes. Okay, so he wants to know if that was Genaivas Da'as.
I think maybe he's removed with him.
What?
I think maybe he's removed with him.
To wear the empty boxes?
Yeah.
Because why?
Why is he not wearing tefillin?
But he's not wearing tefillin. If you wear the boxes, they're not tefillin. The boxes.
People
But he knows.
being never.
So you think you should do the wrong thing?
I don't think it's wrong. I think Shiloh.
Okay.
And yeah, but it's Marasayin and it's just weird. You know.
So to avoid the Marasayan, I should put on this thing to avoid the Marasayan look like a Russia, you think? To avoid like, okay, that's interesting. I didn't think like that.
No, that's when employers, he didn't work film Chanamoyed.
Yeah.
So Chanamoyed, you put something to buy.
Oh, you told me that. I forgot about that. Yes, I did not connect it to the story. Yes. Okay. I forgot about that. Okay. So Rabbi Yitzchak says, it's also b'feish din. Okay? And the din is in Hilchos Tzitzis. Because what if a person's towels, his tzitzis rip, and in the case they're talking about Shabbos, the point is he can't put on new tzitzis, and the person is embarrassed to sit in shul without a towel on. So the din is, he's allowed to wear his towels without tzitzis on it. Okay, now, he's allowed to wear, the fact that he's wearing a full-corn garment without tzitzis on it is because of Mishum Kavod HaBriyas. Okay, for whatever reason it's only for Rabbanan at that point, so Mishum Kavod HaBriyas he's allowed to wear the full-corn garment. So you see that it's not a problem of Genaivas Da'as, even though, again, he's doing the same thing. He's putting on this thing that looks like a talus, so he should look put together in shul, and just so people shouldn't think worse of him, he's allowed to do that. And so the same thing for the Torah is almost exactly the same case. Okay? Now, of course, in this case, there's no EU date nafshi. Okay? The people in shul are not tricked because they dreamt up that if the guy's wearing black boxes, he's wearing tefillin. Of course, every normal person, if you wear black boxes, you must be wearing tefillin. So that head is not going to apply. Okay? So he asks, there's a Gemara that says that a person is not allowed to, if there's a mace, a person is not allowed to have ripped clothing in front of that mace, to make it look as if he ripped Kriya. He really didn't rip Kriya. Okay? He's not that close to the person that he would rip Kriya. But he walks around wearing the ripped clothing to make it look like he ripped Kriya. He's not allowed to do that. And doesn't use exactly what's Genaivas Da'as, but the implication from the Gemara is that you're not allowed to do it because of Genaivas Da'as. So he asks, what's the difference between that case and the guy's wearing the towels? Okay? And the answer, pretty straightforward, but the answer is going to bring out a point. That's the point that I want to make. But before I tell you that answer, you should just know there's a shita of Rashi, or it appears to be a shita of Rashi, that says that Mishum Kavod HaBriyas you may be allowed to do Genaivas Da'as. Okay? It's a question whether Rashi means that, and whether maybe Rashi is going with the shita that holds that Genaivas Da'as may be allowed to do Rabbanan. It's a question what he means. Okay? It could be what we're going to say will be shot actually in that Rashi. Okay? So the answer he gives is like this, which is once you hear it, you'll say it's pretty straightforward. And that's like this. The person who wore the ripped clothing to look like he made Kriya for this person, that person is trying to give a false impression. He's trying to give an impression that I'm extra friendly with this person. Whatever he's trying to give over an impression, a false impression about himself, that somehow I ripped Kriya for this person, when that's he really wouldn't. He wouldn't rip Kriya for this person. As opposed to the guy who's putting on towels with tefillin, that person who's doing towels with tefillin, he's not trying to give a false impression to people. He's trying to protect himself and protect his existing where he's sitting at. He's not trying to say over, I'm this super firm person. He brings an example of a guy who wears kol elon to make it look like he's wearing Tevillas. Okay, who's trying to look extra firm. I wear Tevillas. Okay, that where you're not allowed to, that's also Genaivas Da'as. So he's not trying to look extra firm. He's just trying to be sort of keep himself at where he is. And in that case, that's not Genaivas Da'as. Whether you could question the answer, but the point is definitely correct. And that is, other examples of like that are that Genaivas Da'as very much depends on the person's kavanah. If the person's kavanah is to fool the other person, that leans more towards us saying that it is Genaivas Da'as, as opposed to if the person his kavanah is not like that. He has a more honest or sincere or neutral kavanah, then it's going to be less Genaivas Da'as.